Indeed, family and background is always very important, but one encounters a lot of experiences. School life, working life, challenges, what others see in you, what they expose you to, all these add up to a vision of thinking which you pursue with courage, but above all else, I think, belief that you are contributing to the well-being of mankind. So that's basically my background, that I've been exposed due to a number of reasons, and certainly the background is critical. So that's what I'll say. I think the field which really I have set my own mind to pursue is the promotion of small grains, traditional grains as we call them now. Someone has just posted, why are we still a net importer of traditional grains like groundnuts? The reason is fundamentally our poor research. We don't invest in research as much as we should. And groundnuts and other traditional grains in Zimbabwean economy are not as yet prioritized. You look at maize, you look at tobacco, you look at tea, you look at soybean and wheat. Because of their impact on the food security platform, they tend to get much more attention, including the research services dedicated to seed. Whereas in groundnuts, really, we are struggling. As a result, when we import material from other countries, sometimes imported under proper channels, sometimes smuggled in, you get all sorts of varieties in the respective provinces and districts. And because by and large, my Chimuti, the village woman, is relying on recycled seed, so they tend to grow year in, year after that recycled material, resulting in poor yields. But you know, groundnut is a food crop and a nutrition at household level. So the reason why we are a net importer is because our seed bank for groundnuts is extremely poor. And even to this day, the allocation extended to resources extended to importation of groundnut seed or revival of local seed is very limited. So that's the reason why. And we continue to lobby our government and say, look, not all our districts grow maize. There are some districts which prioritize groundnuts, and they need proper seed. And we still have this challenge. We haven't been as successful as we would want. Right now, the current season, under Pfumvudza, groundnut seed is being extended to growers in 2 kg packs. Really, this is, I don't believe, sufficient. It's a start, but a very poor start, if we are to be honest. We need to give reasonable amounts, 10 kg, 20 kg, then you have got pockets of real growth. But to start people with 2 kg packs, that's very, very little. 1/50th of a hectare, that's just very little. And really, one company alone cannot do it. It's a team approach. And government is a key partner in development, especially rural development. And we must also extend attention to smaller grains, traditional grains, because they make a value. For example, I'll give an example. Cholocho in Mat North does not grow tea, neither does she grow maize or bananas or groundnuts, I don't think so, but she could grow pearl millet, sorghum, rapoko, and other horticulture products like ginger, garlic, and turmeric. So, as we speak now, the distribution and value of seed extended to respective districts, there is a serious anomaly. Some provinces, because of their geography, their ecological regions, they get much more in value and support from the central government than other provinces and districts. So it's an anomaly. But it's fair to say that under the Second Republic, there is limited progress in the right direction. We must continue to lobby and highlight these anomalies. As I said earlier on, background is critical. Fortunately, we are now the third generation raised in a very Christian environment. Our grandfather believed in God, trusted God. He passed it on to his own children, and they passed it on to us. And I think that background is critical because we are a very close family because of the church. And we are working far away from the church, but every weekend it's natural to drive back to Rusape, to our home. And as we, after church on Sunday morning, after Mass, we always gather in my house as the elder brother, and we have our breakfast served. And it is during these meetings, which are now quite common. I would say 90% of the 52 weeks in a year we meet. So it's quite routine, and we discuss issues, experiences encountered during the week, and also share business, economic issues taking place within our economy, also share experiences. And I think that has been built over years. It then breeds trust. And for example, my brother Simba, he went on to form a company to process products from groundnuts. And he is my biggest customer. So it's fair to say business founded on those lines has got a chance to last, and it's bonded by deeds, common vision, common goals, and we employ plus or minus 60% people from the village, and that then spreads into the village, and it becomes a culture, and we support each other. And so, I mean, he has grown now to be a serious player, if not the leading player, in the provision of peanuts and peanut butter and other byproducts, but food-related products. So, yes, I believe that as Zimbabweans, there comes a time in our lives where we must share and believe that I can be part of a success team. And you don't build from a dozen names. It's always starting with a few who then put together experience gained. And we have people in finance, in production, in research, in marketing. It takes time. But because of our background, I mean, we come from a background where Zimbabwe was a colony, and there were consequences of that. Chief among them, in my view, education. We inherited an education system which was prescribed, not necessarily the best for Zimbabwe, but certainly then it was good for the federation. And to this day, I believe they are victims of that system. Victims in the sense that they were taught a way of doing things, and they stick to it. They graduated on degrees like crop science, animal science, and I'm not too sure that's relevant today. I've always questioned, why don't we have specific specialization? We need a degree course in maize production, sugarcane production, tea production, speak groundnuts production, speaking directly to what we are doing, what is the foundation of our economy as Zimbabwe. We ship raw material to other nations and they form industries. So, in other words, I'm saying sugarcane is an industry, maize is an industry, groundnuts is an industry, bananas is an industry. And if you follow and say the research, the production techniques, processing techniques, marketing techniques, the byproducts which come out of that, then those are industries we are shipping out. And certainly this is not confined to Zimbabwe, even SADC, even the whole of Africa, I'm afraid. Because of yesterday's teaching, yesterday's education, we are still perennial victims of that. This is why we must pause. Only yesterday I was in Chegutu district, Ward 5, with about 55 villagers, teaching them how to grow ginger and turmeric, organic ginger, organic garlic for export. But at this juncture, we are still building up our seed bank. This is 41 years after our political independence. People are being taught how to grow ginger, garlic, and turmeric for export. We have never done that, not that there was a law, but we were not exposed to that. So we have taken it up under Traditional Grains Producers Association to teach our people so that we create critical mass. And this is an opportunity for investment for our brothers and sisters outside our borders. Everyone is now sensitive about food. And we believe that ginger, garlic, and turmeric are both medicinal, industrial, and food. And we must certainly invest in that. So we can always start somewhere. Now, coming back to the Sunday meetings, it's not only confined to Sunday. It's virtually ongoing. We have conduct details through technology. We meet, we discuss, we exchange ideas, and you believe in yourselves that, look, we are a family. We inherit some basic principles. We must sustain them and pass them on to the next generation. So there's clarity of thought, but of course underpinned by the belief that the Lord Almighty is the savior of mankind. We have been very, very fortunate that we were brought up in a Christian environment, and so far all of us conform and believe and participate, and we believe that through God's grace we have what we have because He has chosen us to be a light in our village, and that light can be magnified by deeds. So I think we are clear as day on those basic positions, and we remain grateful to the Almighty that we must reach out, and we must always look back and say, look, what happened yesterday? I always believe that life is about yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And what we learn today, yesterday, what we learn, what we read, what we saw, what we hear, let's question it. Let's interrogate it today as we shape up tomorrow. So those are the basics, I believe. And of course, my friend Dr. Mungai will realize that I once said, and I still believe so, that you are either a hunter, a skinner, or a cook. Yes, a hunter must hunt for the other two to take place. There are risks in so doing, but you must have that belief that you are a hunter. You must bring value to the table. Then the skinner will do his bit, and of course, finally the cooking. So we are a team, but I believe that first things first. In any gathering, identify hunters first. Takes time, but it's not impossible. So that's my belief, and we are pleased that so far we are running a marathon, a lifelong marathon. The role of securing food security, and rural development. I don't believe it's under threat. The emphasis differs. We've got a new management team. It takes a bit of time to settle down, but clearly we leave the public to be the judge. My own view is that it's more than other to expand rural development. In fact, that is the opportunity, in my view, of agriculture in Zimbabwe, because my Chimuti in the village still needs basics to be put in place. She's struggling with tillage, planting material, harvesting, mechanization. All these are opportunities. As I walk in the village, as I said yesterday, I was in Mondoro, Ward 5 in Chegutu district, and clearly the villagers still have serious challenges, and I saw nothing but opportunities. And opportunities with sincere people who are keen, who will do a day's work if they can be organized into a structured market. You have to start the relationship, in my view, with the farmer in the village at seed level. Access them seed under terms, and they'll pay. Not necessarily everything, but they'll pay a deposit, certainly. And you follow up by extending agronomy services. Then you must be the market. You must buy back. This is where I think the strongest link is, to market their produce. Then if you do that cycle, they gain trust, and really you have critical volume. And really this is how we build reapers. We met some of the farmers yesterday who we had worked with 15 years ago, but they still remember what we did. And of course, our strategy fell apart, not in total, but to a greater extent, around about 2009, 2010, when we had hyperinflation and we changed currency to US dollars. I think the banks in Zimbabwe, in my view, they are trained to look after polished diamonds, and they struggle to identify and polish new diamonds, or if you like, unpolished diamonds. They are trained to tick a criteria that A, B, C, D, that has been done, and there's been repetition. And we've got my Chimuti who came on the scene, who has never set foot in a bank, and who retains some qualities nevertheless. But she's not trusted because she falls far away, far short of the criteria which has been designed decades ago. And this is where I think there's the biggest challenge: accessing money to my Chimuti in the village. My Chimuti is not going to walk to the bank. Forget about that. She will stay in her surroundings. But she needs some of the services extended by banks or financial institutions. And as I speak to you now, some of our renowned banks have pulled out of the smaller towns because they maintained the old system that you must walk in the bank and do business. And my Chimuti is not part of the jargon, is not part of the technology which is extended to some of the polished diamonds customers, if you like. So the opportunity, I believe, is to trust my Chimuti. Trust your customer, not know your customer. Trust your customer. And very macro, but the macro here has been commercialized. You pay interest rates of 12% per month. That's criminal in most parts of the world. And they say, how do you expect my Chimuti in the village to borrow money at 12%? I think this is where there's a mismatch, and it's an opportunity which must be exploited by others. And it takes a group like Zimbabweans dotted around the world to put together, let's say, 5 million, 10 million US dollars. Let's start small. Let's say we put 2 million US dollars together under terms and conditions managed by an international set up. We'll have to use the trusted institutions like Old Mutual or First Mutual, because they look after people's money, and they are international, they are both regional, and they say, look, we put some money there, and we put a team to manage it, and micro-lend to my Chimuti, but certainly not at the ridiculous charges of 12% a month. My Chimuti will borrow $10 every 2 days or $10 a week. My Chimuti will borrow because she's trading, she's buying and selling. And because she's accessing that money, she's trusted. Then you say 5 of them can come together to consolidate. That's the security, and say, look, choose the 5 people you are comfortable to work with. Then we kickstart something like that. To me, that's the future. From what I saw yesterday, to ask my Chimuti to work in a bank and meet the criteria of know your customer criteria, which is adopted here, it's a joke. It doesn't work, and it won't work. So this is an opportunity. We must continue to pursue other options. If the door is closed, I always say, try the window. And if the window is closed, try the ceiling. And I call it the door, window, ceiling theory. And it works. Because there are some things which have come through the ceiling. It's a bit risky, but nevertheless, if the objective is to be found seated by 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, I'm there. How I get there is perhaps not the main issue. I'm there meeting the criteria of being found seated at 10 o'clock. So the door, window, ceiling applies as we pursue some of the challenges which face the rural farmer. And the rural farmer, to me, is where the greatest opportunity lies, because they have land, they have know-how, they have limited skills, limited infrastructure in terms of mechanization, but there are a willing, growing group of people who, if someone can harness that, I believe it's doable, it's profitable, and it's something which must be pursued. And it will be done. It might take another decade, but it will be done. I told you yesterday, we were growing ginger in field-day ginger in Mondoro. It has never been done. The last 40 years, it has never been done, but there it is. So we must expect that there are opportunities in Zimbabwe, and we must now take responsibility. All of us, let's share our experiences. We can put a team which will start up this exercise. It's a marathon. Yes, there will be obstacles, but I believe there's a goodwill, there's good intention, there's good know-how, and we have got, in my view, an improving government which is listening. I think the current head of state, really agriculture is one of his areas of operation. He himself is a farmer. He likes agriculture. He's a supporter of agriculture, and we must take full advantage. It's an hour. He's there now. Let's all harness that opportunity, because he's a participant. He understands us, and let's push. And also, as we speak, I think the Ministry of Agriculture is well equipped in terms of people who are relevant to today. They are participants. Both the minister and the secretary are active participants. They are coming from today. They are products of today. So they view yesterday, and of course, they are also shaping tomorrow. So I believe it's an hour. And that nucleus of head of state, minister of agriculture, secretary of agriculture, at this hour, I think we must push. And, in good faith, we must dictate and say, look, we believe A, B, C, D must take place. For example, I'm on record to say, look, we need to invest in research. Research is heart of the matter. And when I say that, even to be taxed, yesterday we paid an AIDS levy in the whole nation. So we must have a a research levy to be payable by all of us, to be taxed for that. If we build that position, then we are winning. Equally, I've suggested that the special drawing rights which came from IMF must be a part of it, must be dedicated to research. If we build and invest in research deliberately, I believe that's the first intent as a nation to say, look, let's now bring up these other crops. These crops we are talking about. Zimbabwe has got 3, 4, 5 dozen crops which do well, including horticulture. They are all industries. Let me cite an example of tea. There is someone who buys our tea outside our borders. Let's identify them and say, look, sir, we want to take up equity in your tea manufacturing outfit in London or New York. We take up equity there. And we are now both a producer of tea, raw tea. We are also a producer of the finished product, but with the equity in London or Washington. Then that way, we both now say, look, how do we increase our shareholding as we progress with our business relationship? This is where the education of yesterday is failing. It does not push us to that. It's perfection of sending more raw tea, raw cotton outside our borders. No, I think let's take up equity. It's raw material in Europe where they are starting the 5 issues: research, production, processing, marketing, and consumption. So I'm saying let's be part of that by discussion. 2 business minds coming together and saying, look, you have got a company in Bristol which is processing tea. Let's take up equity in that company by arrangement. We pay for our shares, but we are now a participant in the final product. Equally, we invite technology to flow back into our own production techniques here, because sometimes production is linked to the ecological region and the geography. So these are some of the issues I believe we must look at. A question has been posed here, reference the A1, A2 resettlement models, and saying that the security of tenure poses challenges. Well, yes, I think it was too much to expect that the first products which came out of the land reform program will be successful. Yes, there are challenges. A1, A2 attracted all sorts of players because they said on paper they've got resources to manage the farms, but of course there were other challenges, and the economy did not remain stagnant. There were other challenges which came through because of other political issues. The land reform posed a serious challenge to the norm, and those who had capital took flight, and they posed the challenges, sometimes open challenges, sometimes invisible challenges, but nevertheless we encountered serious positions. Accessing of money became a challenge, it still is a challenge, and money was confined to a particular sector of the players within Zimbabwe, and they were very frightened to lend. And so I believe that we should now say, look, how do we improve A1, A2 resettlement positions? And an open discussion will invite input, and we build a model which we believe will provide opportunities for the banking sector. It's very interesting that quite a bit is happening now in our banks. I see consolidation taking root. Some of our bigger banks, they are, as we speak now, negotiating to become really much stronger in combining their resources and expertise. Yes, we are not sure whether this is the best thing, but they will be stronger balance sheet. They will take more risk. You see, it's not enough to simply take profit. Risk is part and parcel of the profit mantra. You must take risk. And we have seen in the past quite a number of small banks coming on the scene and disappearing, because sooner or later they are chasing the same polished diamond. No one has tackled with success My Chimuti in the village. And some of us are thinking of My Chimuti Bank. We call it a bank, but really it's perhaps less than that. It will be more linked to inputs, starting with seed, nurturing My Chimuti right up to marketing and getting produce. And she must believe that it's worth doing it again. That's the sort of scenario we have to bring about. There are all issues also to do with the environment. We had the first government led by His Excellency then Comrade R.G. Mugabe. He was more of a politician, correcting political positions, more of his tenure, and perhaps not quite dedicating the same enthusiasm and time to economic issues. He went for the fundamentals. And I salute him personally, because land reform, education are key cornerstones of development, certainly in this part of the world. Yes, when you talk of land reform, you evoke emotions across the board. There were some yesterday who benefited because of legislation, because they were white in Zimbabwe, they were European, they were exposed to a set of benefits. So he had to come in and correct. That's why there was a war waged to restore value and dignity to the black people of Zimbabwe. Now we are all equal before the law. So there had to be change. And in so doing, some felt it went too much. And when we started talking about the land, clearly we lost a lot of friends throughout the world. But I think by and large, black Zimbabweans today are proud that at least they own the land. Yes, utilization is a challenge, but we own the land. And we are now inviting like minds to come on board. How do we reshape? This discussion is a plus. We are cross-pollinating, finding each other by debate, dotted across the world, and saying, look, how can we improve ourselves? In so doing, we are developing a mind of progress, an economic thrust which is now gaining momentum, certainly under the Second Republic, who are products of the previous government. But they are now realizing that political freedom alone is not enough. We need to cement it with a clarity of intent on economic issues. And I think the work is in progress. And as a nation, I think it's fair to say that there is now an awareness, a level of awareness. Some of the programs in agriculture in particular are directed at My Chimuti in the village. Fumvudza in Twa it's now a plus in the village. They believe in it because our soils are not in good shape. They need to be looked at, but it takes time. But at least we've made a start. And I'm talking about 40 years after independence. But nevertheless, it's a start. As I said earlier, it's a marathon. So we are winning. Yes, this is a very interesting subject now about Zim students really not being very practical. Well, let me go back to yesterday, because I always believe that our education is founded on yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I was on the university's issue, and I believe that yesterday's influence has got a say up to today. And nevertheless, it comes a time when we must cross-pollinate, but we must pause and say, look, are we on the right path? Do we need to amend, to adjust? Are we inputting better material into our kids? So this is what I think we must now face as an economy. The graduates coming from our respective universities must be relevant to the reality. And sometimes, certainly during my experience, there were anomalies, where chaps coming out and clearly not too sure of what they are doing and what they're expected to do, and certainly not leading by example. and then you trace it back that the education content or the course content is void of reality, and as such, we must do what we can by I had once what I called a bush lecture, where I invited MSU, Midland State University, and the vice chancellor and some deans of faculty. We went to a farm, an Pardie state farm in the Midlands, and we said, look, let's cross-pollinate here. And they brought some students who were in their third or fourth year, and clearly they were surprised to see a combine harvesting wheat. And some of them were amazed that, is this how it works? And yet I said, if these are third or fourth year students doing crop science, this should be normal. But this is where you see that there is a gap. And us, who also are players in the practical world of agriculture, we have an obligation, a duty to cross-pollinate, to go back and assist in shaping tomorrow, because today invites all of us to shape tomorrow. So I feel that we can revisit some of our courses, and I go back to specialization. And this is why perhaps we have now a dozen universities in Zimbabwe. I don't want them to be carrying on what they were taught at UZ. UZ is the mother university, but I want them to be specialists. If you are in Great Zimbabwe, for example, in Masvingo, you are the specialist in sugarcane production. So start with the research, production techniques, processing techniques, marketing techniques, and consumption tastes. What are the byproducts which come from sugarcane? Then we have graduates coming out like that. If you are in Lupane State University in Mat North, that's where our core deposits are anchored. Equally, Vic Falls is anchored. So let's have a degree course on tourism, specializing, learning from Vic Falls, a renowned position, geography spot within the world, one of the 7 wonders of the world. Equally, on core, it comes from Wange. Let's start with the research, production, processing, marketing, and what are the byproducts of core? Lupane State University leading in that. So this is what I feel is the challenge of the academia today, and say, look, let's now visit, let's now do ABCD. For your information, I've just written a book which will be published very shortly, and I've posed questions for each and every university, and I'm challenging the academia personnel, the academia team, to say, look, guys, can we do more? Can we add more? Can we do ABCD? Do we have platforms for exchange of ideas? And I think this is where we could improve and shape our own way. We're not going to wait for another degree course designed from Oxford. We have enough material in Africa now, enough questions to pose in Africa to say, look, no. What is the Kenyan experience? What is the Nigerian experience? What is the Egyptian experience, South African experience? How do we mold ourselves? How do we bring value to Africa, to the SADC region, to the various regional economic bodies? I think it's doable, and we have the capacity to do so. We have a range of professors, visiting professors, but I think let's provide platforms like this where we challenge each other. And I'm one past chairman of a parastatal. I found it necessary during the COVID era. I had a bit of time. I wrote a book, not in the most professional manner, but certainly it's more of a pictorial book, but it's factual. And I'm challenging the students to say, look, if you are in grade 7, what's your tech? If you are in Form 6, what's your tech here? If you are in undergraduate, what's your tech? Those questions, that book, I want to visit every university and explain myself and be challenged, because I'm provoking people here. And then, in so doing, cross-pollination takes place. We come up with a better position, good for Africa, good for the world. And food secure Africa is good for the whole continent. Someone is posing a question here, very interesting, to say, is it fair to blame a CEO or board chairman of a state-owned enterprise, a parastatal, Do they have enough freedom from political interference? The answer is yes. You have got to be man enough to say yes or no to the Honorable Minister. If you don't do that, then I'm afraid you are in for a torrid time. You must say no. You must say yes. You don't raise your hand to become a chairman of a board or a CEO. Well, CEO you might because you apply, but a chairman, certainly you don't. They just appoint you. They see some qualities they believe are reasonable and they appoint you. Once appointed, it's your hour. An hour has got 60 minutes. So you must use it to the best advantage. I cannot sit back here and say and blame any minister who was during my tenure. I said no to the minister or otherwise. Yes, I had to say no to some issues because they didn't make sense and they were outside my sphere of belief or influence. And if you don't do that, that's the first line of failure. You must say no. You must say yes. The minister has got a mandate. The board has got a mandate. The chairman has got a mandate. The CEO has a mandate. If you are doing 70% of each other's expectations, that's a winning formula. But there are moments when you have got to differ and say no. And I did that. And guess what? I think they respect you if you say no. They know that next time this guy is not going to be pushed around. That's where most of my colleagues fail. They are intimidated. It would not look good for a minister to appoint you to a board as a chairman. Then the next week he gets you out because you have differed with him. But we don't realize that. So if he says, look, 10 left, when you know very well that turning left is disastrous for the organization, then you are to blame, not the minister. So I categorically say that that's up to the individual. But you must remain yourself in your colors. Otherwise, you're not good to anybody. A very interesting question here referenced the disconnect between agriculture, curriculum, the industry, financiers. Someone is saying, what is the best way to ensure a seamless plan right up to value addition and marketing? Research is the answer, my brother or sister. That's really what I say. Research. And this is where we are weak, not just as Zimbabwe or SADC, but as Africa. I believe we don't put enough to research. Research is the beginning of success. Research is not just written research or academic. It's practical. Going to the village, sitting down with my Chimuti and asking questions, and then shaping your policy or your response or your financing plan after discussing issues with my Chimuti in Bikita, in Mzarabani, in Nyanga, in Cholocho. That's research. That's what I'm talking about. But we don't do that. We don't invest in that. But not to be done when you are postgraduate, during your graduation. If you are in finance, how do you finance agriculture? Not just agriculture, but are you in animals? Are you in crops? Are you in horticulture? And be specific. Go further and say, look, under crops, I mean sugarcane. And then you specialize in sugarcane. Specialization, my brother, will bring value to the table here. We don't specialize. As I said, we inherited an education system which was founded on yesterday. And yesterday is the federation, in our case, in Southern Africa, in this part of the world. Rhodesia, Southern Rhodesia, Northern Rhodesia, and Nyasaland. One university to cater for 3 countries. That's where the problem started. Because they had an objective. And that objective was to have a common understanding, not a specialized understanding. And to this day, my brother, we have not recovered from that. That's why my Chimuti is outside the banking system. And this is why government has to step in with financial models. And the government is not the expert on finance. And indeed, there will be abuse, there will be issues, but the government means well. Because my Chimuti has been left. And of course, my Chimuti is responsible for the tenure of government as well. So there's a joint mutual understanding there. And as a result, resources sometimes are not used to the best. But let's design courses which are relevant to particular regions. I've said, and I'll give that example. Chiredzi in Masvingo, Great Zimbabwe University, should be the master in sugarcane. We go across the country. We go to Mat North, Wange Koreale, Lupani State University, should be the master. They should exceed, they should excel more than any other university about core, answering those 5 questions. What are we doing? What comes out of core? What can be done? Are we now reaching out to the new developments in technology under core? This is at Lupani State University because of their geography. Equally with the Vic Falls. The tourism issues. Are we mastering? Are we learning? Because it's a global position which is geographed in Mat North. And the Lupani State University must be an expert. Do more than the other universities on tourism. Climate change. University of Zimbabwe should be a specialist. Because that is affecting all agriculture and all facets of agriculture. So I think that specialization should be anchored on our respective universities. By so doing, in my humble opinion, that is what Zimbabwe should be doing. A degree course holding for 10 years, well, I'm not too sure, languages perhaps, but we must adapt and change and modernize. Speak to today in shaping tomorrow. What did we pick up yesterday? What are the fundamentals which can stay? What are we putting in input of today? How do we shape tomorrow? How do we draft tomorrow? Coming from our own universities. The research, this is where research is poorly funded, and we are found wanting on that. I believe financing models for crops, again, partly the answer lies in research, because the research will tell us where is the value chain going to, at what cost, and when, and who are the partners, who ideal partners in such a venture. Yes, because we are concentrating only on production with minimum research, then we got lost on the value chain. So research will clarify some of the opportunities and pitfalls under production, under processing, under marketing, and byproducts which come out of that. So my own view is that if we strengthen our research position and take it as a must, and I don't know how some of these degree courses were designed. I don't know, because we tend to follow what happened yesterday, and there's been repetition here. But technology, has come on board. Technology adds and distorts at times. So I feel that if we do more research under those 5 pillars, that way an investor, a financier, will find opportunity and say, look, this is as far as I'm going, and I need to team up with others. And we don't want to blame financiers. Financiers, of course, take risk in the money business of extending value, believing that it will be fine. But when we say it will be fine, it might not be fine because of other factors. For example, all of us now are very much caught up with the COVID pandemic rather, and we did not plan. No one foresaw that in their planning. I don't think as we sit around having respective plans for our respective businesses, anyone came up with anything to say, look, there'll be COVID-19 or globally. I don't think so. I'm not too sure about that. But so some things come, and that alone distorted many business plans, resulting in serious losses. So that's the risk which bankers take on board. But design a funding plan founded on reality. And that's what research does sometimes. Who is talking to my Chimuti when they are some of our serious banks? Do they even set foot in the village? The CEO of some of our renowned stock exchange listed companies, have they ever set foot in the village to spend a day researching or relying on third parties to give information which is tainted by yesterday's deeds and say, look, this is how we landed yesterday, we were successful, so we continue on the same path. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, Zimbabwe is fast changing. The region is changing. The global activities are changing. And what we did yesterday is still strong in us, but sometimes it's important to shake it and challenge it and provoke it, as we are doing now. Honestly, there are pockets of wisdom trapped in us all. Let's reach out. Reach out in Bikita, because that's where the real opportunity lies, in my view. There are more needs which will be funded by honesty, hard work. But we are not reaching out. Yes, how many of our graduates spend time, measured time in the village? I'm not too sure about that. So I still think the answer lies with us. And when we accept that we are players, part of a team, yes, we'll make mistakes, but the other colleague will cover for me and push the ball a bit further. That's winning. We believe that tomorrow is certain. It's coming. Today is with us, 24 hours. Yesterday is gone. But those three are intertwined. They cross-pollinate without us or with us. Let me repeat that. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow cross-pollinate without us or with us. So, it's a given position. We need to cross-pollinate. We need to revisit. Some of these degrees, some of them have been done for the last 15 or 20 years. The relevance of which I'm not sure there's been assessment. I don't know. As I said, I'm not a gifted scholar. But honestly, there's a need to review. Education is about yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Are we speaking to tomorrow? Are we preparing for tomorrow? Research provides those clues. Someone is asking what lessons can be drawn from the performance of ADA. Well, let me give you our own personal experience. When I was the chairman, I became chairman sometime in 2008 because my chairman then left for another greener pasture outside our borders. I was vice chairman and I became acting chairman. Then, of course, I was then eventually appointed. But when we got there, I'm afraid the company was in trouble financially. She was not able to pay employees, let alone any mechanization. There was just really a very sad position. And we realized that this is a business venture and there are options which we can bring in. As I said earlier, the team, when board members are appointed, you are not party to that. You work with a given team. So among us, there were hunters, cooks, and skinners. I, as the chairman, clearly I was a hunter. There was no question about that. And I realized that on my board, I must identify hunters and put them in strategic positions of chairing the finance committee, the operations committee, and the governance committee, the human resources committee. So that was the first step I took. And then the culture of the organization had to be shaped, and they must be influenced by deeds. So for the first, let me just say something here. I think I'm the only chairman who was with ADA for nearly 12 years, just under 12 years. I used my own personal car, my own laptop, my own cell phone. I did not benefit from any car from ADA or laptop or cell phone. Not that I didn't want, but there was nothing like that. There was no provision for that. And we did not prioritize it. And I was quite content with that. And to some extent, I feel that that's the personal sacrifice. I was fortunate to be appointed as the board chairman. I didn't raise my hand. It's an honor. And I said, on day one, I've been appointed, but it's for an hour. I was clear as day, it's an hour. In those 60 minutes, I'm going to do what I can. And really, when I look back, I think some progress was made. We adopted, there was no finance, and we said, we're not going to treasury here. Let's use business options. And we went for PPP, public-private partnerships. BOT, build, operate, transfer. Those are models of business which are renowned. But I'm not sure whether they are taught in our business curriculum at the university. I'm not too sure about that. But anyway, that's what I said, look, we are not going to treasury, because that will attract a lot of other issues. They didn't have money anyway. It will never come on time. But let's bring partners, Zimbabwean money for that matter. So we argued our way. There was misunderstanding at cabinet level. They did not quite appreciate what we were doing. It was seen as politically bringing back whites. No, we said, look, we have at law Zimbabweans who are white, who are experienced in this venture. We need them to cross-pollinate. And we argued our way. And I must say, government in its totality, sometimes you don't understand them, but there are pockets within government. There are organizations. There are entities in government. The security sector understood us. The security sector, we took it upon themselves to find out what we were talking about. They sent delegations. They listened. We went to Chisumbanje as a fine example. And we went and they wanted to know, to understand what exactly is going on, what are we trying to do? And I must give them credit. They were thorough. Once they understood us, they supported us, openly and indirectly. And this is why we succeeded in government tolerating some of the things which they did not quite go along in public, but quietly they said, look, let's see what is going on. But if things go wrong, you are in Warsaw. And we knew we had an ally in the security sector. But we had to go and find them, say, look, gentlemen, we are a landlocked country. One of the chief imports we do is fuel. We can make some fuel here. We've learned from Brazil. I went to Brazil to see what was happening in Brazil. And really, Brazil is now on 85% e-fuel. In other words, ethanol, 85%. She imports very little in terms of outlay in fuel. In fact, she's now doing even diesel. So that tried and tested technology, we wanted to impart it to Zimbabwe. And we started. But of course, we were working with some white Zimbabweans. And this attracted all sorts of political connotations. Look, you are now giving back the land to the whites, this and that. But we said, if we don't, what is the alternative? Anyway, as I said, the security sector assisted us greatly. And I must say, the security sector in this country is more than provision of security. They run a lot of things because they are trained to stabilize anomalies within our economy. I have great respect for that. I had first-hand experience with some of the leaders today. They were quiet participants who say, look, let's carry on, but yes, the country will catch up with us. Let's do this. And they are right. Today, in my view, we should be on E60. We should be producing 60% of our petrol. But we did not understand it. There was division eventually. But nevertheless, I believe that formula is here and it will be nurtured because the architects of the first phase are still here. And I can see it taking root and being expanded. So the lessons I learned from Ada are that, first and foremost, don't be intimidated. If you are a chairman, it's an honor. You've got to play your part. Don't always agree with your minister. It's a mistake. That's the first lesson I learned. The second one is that look at government, not necessarily in its totality. If your minister is saying A, B, C, D, the minister is not the total solution. Go to another minister. In cabinet, we don't sit in cabinet. But I said, I'll put questions through other ministers in cabinet. When they talk, please say, can you pose this question? Can you pose this question? So I'm represented in cabinet by going through various other ministers. Because I mean well for my country. That's why they put me in that place in the first place. So these are tactics which one develops. And by so doing, I believe one is briefed and said, look, this is what we must do. Sometimes a minister is not good at agriculture, he's not good at finance, he's not good at transport, he's not good at combining and seeing a vision you share. But he's coming from a different political position, under political instructions. But you must also put in what you believe yields benefit. We laid the foundation in ADA. When we left ADA, after our tenure had come, ADA was now bankable. ADA was in the plus. ADA had monthly revenue sources. Now, what I then see is that a board was appointed, and I think the chair did not last. And now a new chairman is in. Something was lost during that phase. You know, you need leadership. And my style of approach was participatory. Not participatory with the minister alone or the ministry, but with the public. If I was in Midlands, the Midlands people knew what was happening in their other estates. If I was in North, the same thing. If I was in Manigaland, the same thing. I believed in a participatory, involving the publics, respective publics. Whether that is now shared by others, time will tell. But they are still new. They'll settle down, and the combination differs and backgrounds differ. I come from a strong farming background, a village environment. So all these factors did play a part. And I look back, and clearly I'm satisfied with our footprints within ADA. I don't think I have any unusual relationship with Agribank. I'm a customer like anyone else. I don't have any special relationship with them. Yes, we are looking forward to their status now as Agriculture Finance Corporation, AFC, as they used to be. Because I think something was lost when they assumed the Agribank mandate. That left my Chimuti completely. And I think if they do their research and they really depart from the norm, in other words, looking after polished diamonds, then I think we'll see a vibrant agriculture emerging in our economy. The quality and caliber of the leadership is important. Are they open-minded? Are they hunters? Because the issue is that you need hunters here. And once out of 10, you have got 60% hunters. I believe that's a winning team. If they have more cooks or skinners, then I'm afraid we will not go far. So the objective is to attend to a growing constituency, my Chimuti in the village, and to be realistic, to do research, and then put a team together. Out of 10, every 10 key critical personnel, they have to wear the hunter jacket. Wear it by deeds, and that's my advice to AFC, as they are getting to be known as. For government to revise the agenda to go back to AFC, it's very commendable, and it's being realistic, because there's a serious gap. And I think their mandate is to polish diamonds, not to maintain polished diamonds. And I also feel that the current challenges of funding agriculture are critical, but let it be founded on research, production, processing, marketing, and consumption, the byproducts which come out of those particular, and then regard all products as industries. If that is the theme, then I think that's a winning formula. In other words, it has to be a total bank, not just funding production, but really seeing that after production, where are we going? Where are you taking us to? Those questions, I think, will build a new entity. And as I say, hunting has to be maintained. They must hunt every day. And hunters must feature in the team, the key team. It must be biased towards hunters. The response on the last question, why is our agriculture government input dependent year in, year out? I think at times government reacts to situations, and situations differ. Now, we need options of funding rural agriculture. If you really ask me, I believe the agriculture portfolio should be in two. We should have a fully dedicated ministry for rural agriculture and another one for commercial agriculture, because it's such a key subject, it's such a key entity in our economy. And I believe that one ministry to look after agriculture, land, water, fisheries, I think it's just too much. It's just too much. And again, we must be specialists. And I believe, really, we must have a ministry dedicated for rural agriculture. It's such a huge constituency, which with enormous potential. Dedicated ministry of rural agriculture, one for commercial agriculture. I think then we can drive our agriculture founded on reality, not a general thing. Specialization is what I believe must come in. But specifically to year in, year out, dependent on government reacts, and it is good to see that what situation, how can we do it? And so there's a danger of the solution remaining new in its implementation, or those who drive it. One would have thought, and I think government is doing its best under the circumstances, the main banking sector is not dealing with Maichimuti. Maichimuti is not part of their equation. That's the truth. They cite risk. They cite that, look, if things go wrong, we are not equipped to deal with such a situation. So really, they've shunned funding rural agriculture. And as a result, 7 out of 10 of our people are still in the rural communities, and they struggle. And if they do come into the banking sphere, micro lending is what is the nearest, and certainly with the punitive interest rates of 12% or so per month, it's just impossible. They will stay out of the system, and this is why government then comes in to save a situation. So we really have to say that there is need for a rural banking model under rural agriculture, with its own representation at cabinet level. And then, of course, commercial agriculture, which is, well, by and large, is well represented by the commercial banks. You can say the commercial banking system here is geared to commercial agriculture. Rural agriculture has got its own peculiarities, its own pluses and minuses. And we need to build and mold and come up with a responsive position, which I think at this hour is not there. That's my input on that. Thank you.